Good morning, seculars, or afternoon or evening, whenever you're listening. Welcome to Secular Minority Podcast. I am your host, Sunny Secular, and on this podcast, we give a non-religious, humanist point of view on the things around us and life. We bring up current topics in social media, and we share our deconversion stories. This is a safe place for everyone, no matter what your ethnicity is, your gender, orientation. It doesn't matter here. There's no shunning. Think of this as your safe place. And I want to welcome today a special guest. She is from Australia, my first international. She has two pages on TikTok, Metal Cyborg, and then she has Aussie Atheist. She has over 1,000 followers, and I just want to introduce her. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I've been trying to get to you for the longest time, so I'm happy that you agreed.
Makes it interesting when there's such a big difference.
All right, so let's get to your story. I'm going to ask a few questions here. So for the audience who doesn't know, how long have you been on TikTok and what other social media platforms are you on?
I think I've been on TikTok now for a year overall, but my Aussie Atheist account I've only had since the beginning of this year. And I've also got an Aussie Atheist Instagram account that I've started posting on pretty regularly. So people should go and check that out.
Okay. Okay, all right. Now, I noticed when we talked earlier, you said that your story is a little bit different. You started out as Catholic, and then you went to Pagan, and then you came around to atheist. So what was it like being little madam? What was it like being little madam in Catholic?
I was pretty lucky, I guess, looking back, that we didn't have a very strict family in terms of the Catholic side.
Okay.
It was more just when I stayed with my grandma, I would have to go to church, and you'd have to sort of I guess pander to her whims in terms of how that played out with the family, and going along with what she wanted, which as a kid I was happy to do.
Oh.
Played happy families. But
Okay.
I asked a lot of questions when I was younger of myself more than anyone else, because I kind of, the adults didn't. I picked up early that the adults didn't want to answer the questions or didn't have the answers. But I had all those sort of, churning in the back of my mind. What does this mean? And is this real? And what's this about? So yeah, that's how I ended up moving to paganism in the end.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What drove you to go from Catholic with grandmother to pagan?
Well, I've always been interested in history, and I've always been interested in other cultures and religions and that sort of thing. So I kind of, when I was in high school, that was when the internet first became a thing that, people would have in their homes. And I kind of took that as, okay, I can research a bit now and look into things. And at the same time, cosmically aligned that the craft came out. So it was like all of a sudden, oh, well, okay, we've got the craft, we've got Charmed, all the other kids were doing it, I'm going to be a witch, I'm going to, cast all these spells. And I just took it, I guess, a little bit further than the other ones did. I took it pretty seriously, bought all the books,
Me too.
Read up all the history of it. And
yeah, I did too. I still have the books now. I don't know what to do with them.
I don't think anyone would want them now.
So did you were you more towards the Wiccan side, or just practice on your own?
Well, I when I started taking it more seriously, I didn't know anybody that was also that interested. So I kind of just dabbled on my own, but
Okay.
I headed more towards the Wiccan side because that seemed to be what a lot of the books that I could get access to and a lot of the internet access that I had, that's what I sort of knew to search, and I sort of took it from there. But I mean, since then I've learned so much more about all these different areas and paths that people are doing, and yeah, it's still interesting even though I don't follow it.
Yeah, right. So what made you take the shift from teenage to adult to make you say, you know what, I'm just going to be a atheist?
I think a big part of it was the fact that I had some health issues when I was in my late 20s, and I kind of looked at that and sort of turned it about in my head as if to say, well, okay, I survived this. Why don't other people survive this? Why did I have to go through this when other people don't have to go through this? It didn't make sense. And I guess I was fortunate in that I met somebody who was also at the same time really into debunking religion and questioning, and in the Aussie style that we do, making jokes about everything. Right. And with conversations with him, I kind of, it sparked more questions, and he would give me names like, you know, Hitchens and Dawkins and everything, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go home and I'm going to, you know, Google this, and I'm going to, you know, do that internet thing again where, you know, just immerse myself. And I just got hooked, and I was like, I just cannot see a possible way that there's a God, that it's real, that any of this makes any sense. So it's amazing how one person can just spark that inspiration to question and find out more.
Right.
And that's what I hope to do for other people on my social media. Just give them that spark to follow and educate and learn something new.
Okay. So when your friend, you know, threw those names at you and then you went home and looked it up, what exactly was your aha moment that made you say, this sounds like it's right? What was your exact moment, or was there an exact moment?
I think it was a lot of little things, like, you know, you might find a particular line from a book or a particular quote from a debate or something, and you just think, yeah, you know, that's a really good question. One of the ones that is commonly used that I particularly like is, well, it depends on where you're born as to what religion you're raised in. Mm-hmm. And it just suddenly clicked. It was like, well, yeah, because why are there, you know, millions of people in one country that follow one religion and millions of people in another country that follow another religion? Here in Australia, we don't have a base religion, but you find that there are, I'd say there's probably more Christians than any other religion here. And my assumption would be that that's because we were invaded by the English back in the day. Right. That's where that's come from. So it just, you know, fell into place for me, and I kind of went,
Yeah, that's what I try to explain that to people too. It's like, well, that's one of the arguments that the apologetics have is, well, how come it's so many Christians? And it's really based on who your capturer was, you know, who conquered who. Whoever conquered, you know, whoever conquered, you got their religion and their way of life and like everything around that.
Yeah, it's amazing how one or two countries can have made such a big impact on the world. It's mind-boggling.
Okay. So I wanted to touch bases on this just a little bit, and you know, I hope you don't mind me bringing it up, but I noticed on your TikTok, you have a lot of videos where you're specifically telling people or trying to bring awareness to ableism. That was something that I'm guilty of. I didn't think about it until I started seeing your videos. And then I was like, you know what? She is absolutely right. When I go to this place, there's no place, for disabled people to get into the building. And that's something that I could do better at advocating for that too. But can you share with the audience what you would want people to know, and um, what possessed you to bring it up on TikTok?
Yeah, well, originally when I started being a little bit more serious about TikTok, with my non-atheist account, originally it didn't have any atheist content on it, but I was looking to become more of a serious disability activist, which I still am, and that's because I was born with spina bifida, which basically means I can't use my legs, I can't feel my legs up to a certain point. And I just find that social media is just the best place to reach the biggest amount of people. So
right,
to be able to use my life experience and just in quick, short bursts of information, just say, think about this, look at this, what does this mean? Just to make people think a little bit more and sort of hopefully affect change worldwide. I mean, I'd like to start with Australia first because
right.
that's where I am, but I just think it's hugely important, and a lot of people just miss so much of that information partly because they don't want to talk about it. They're afraid to bring it up with people like me, or they don't know anybody, or they feel like they don't know anybody. I mean, there's invisible disabilities, so
Right.
you probably do know somebody. But yeah, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I've actually been thinking recently, I would really love to meet more atheists who have disabilities, because I'd love to find out more about accessibility with regards to religion, like whether it's physically getting into a church or being, subject to discrimination because of they can't participate in something, or that sort of thing. I
Right.
think that would be a really interesting avenue to take things, find out what people's experiences are.
Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but last weekend, the American Atheists, they had an online convention over the weekend. And I noticed in the comment section, because the way they had it set up, it was sort of like this. It was a Zoom thing, but they had separate rooms that you could go into. So if you were interested in this subject, you could go to the, in this room, or if you're interested in another subject. And then they had the main stage where everybody could come in and listen to the speeches that they had prepared. So one of the things that I noticed in the comments section was a lot of people, and I didn't get their names, so I'm sorry about that. But there were a lot of people in the comments section who were saying that they enjoyed the Zoom meeting better, the virtual meeting better, because if it had been at the original place where they said, I think it was Texas, they're supposed to be in Texas, and then they said it was going to be in here in Arizona, but because of the pandemic, they couldn't do it, so they wound up having it online. And there are a lot of people in the comment section saying that they had disabilities. It would have been hard for them to come to the convention. And so that goes with what you're saying, that maybe it does need to be a separate, well, not a separate group, but just like another group inside of one for, people with disabilities where you can share your stories.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, I guess, what I've seen as the positive side effect of the pandemic has been suddenly everybody is, oh, we've got to find a way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they've found a way to do it, but the disability community have been saying for years and years, can we find a way to do this to
right.
include everybody?
Exactly.
And suddenly everybody's like, what are we going to do? And, yeah, so it's worked out well
like,
for some of us.
I told you. You're sitting there like, I told you.
Yeah. But it's amazing how technology can really make a huge difference. And we're including more and more people that just were never included before.
Right.
And I don't think anyone would honestly say they mean to do it or whatever, but it's just nice to think that we don't have any excuses anymore.
Right.
So
yeah. Okay. So with that being said, with the do people bring up the fact that, well, you're disabled, why wouldn't you believe in God? Because to me, that's kind of counterproductive. It's kind of counterproductive, but go ahead. Why do people ask you that?
It's more a case of, because like I don't know whether it's just because of the area I live in or the types of people that are here or what it is, but I've never, like, I could go through a whole year of my life and nobody would ever come up to me and say, oh, what church do you go to? What religion are you? Anything like that. It's not something that seems to be part of Australian culture, where I've noticed in, like, when I see American TikTokers and social media, it seems to be a thing where in particular places that's a topic of conversation or comes up for whatever reason. But I do notice that I'll just be sitting, like I could be sitting in a park reading a book or something, and someone will come up to me and they'll be like, Jesus will save you. When you get to heaven, you will be able to walk. And can I pray for you, my dear? And I'm just sitting there going, because I'm not very good when I'm caught, without any warning.
You want to say, why do I have to die to walk?
I'm just like, I have to go now and try and get out of it. But the amount of times, there was even one time when I was sitting out in front of where I work in my lunch break, and this lady came up to me, and I thought she was gonna, like, I mean, it's hard to judge when people come up to you, you can't judge by looks, so I didn't know she wanted, but it didn't look like somebody that was going to approach me with a religious thing. But she came up to me and she's like, I've got this book, you should read this book. Here, have a pamphlet. And I'm like, no, that's okay. No, I'm good, thanks. I've got to go back inside now. But sometimes they start off with they try and get you in by saying, oh, you're doing such a great job. I can tell you that you're really getting out there and living your life and making the most of what you've been given. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just working, paying for bills. I'm not doing anything that great.
Right. I know one of the funniest videos you had was recently. I was laughing. It was, I'm gonna tell you what it was. It was the one that you put out that said, if you were being kidnapped and they're more for ableists, and so you said, you kidnapped me and you didn't even bring my chair.
Yeah, because they wouldn't be thinking about that.
Said, now you have to take me up the stairs. I was laughing, and then I was like, wait, am I supposed to be laughing?
See, that's the other thing. And obviously it does go for, everybody's different in terms of what they're comfortable with, but like with my stuff, people can laugh at me, people can laugh with me. If I'm making something that's funny.
You said, now you have to take me up the stairs and I have to use the bathroom.
Oh yeah. Actually, after I did that, I thought to myself, I am so safe. Nobody's even going to try.
Okay, so this part of the episode, I'm going to, I call take off the hats. So I'm taking off the atheist hat and I put it on social media hat. I noticed a couple of days ago on social media, your Prime Minister Morrison, do I have it correct?
Mhm.
Morrison was on the fire for saying some things about women. Now, we're not going to talk about him personally, but I'm going to ask you for your experience. Is there a problem with there in Australia where people cannot put men and women as equal? Have you had any problems with that?
I think it is systemic. I think it depends on say your workplace or your family or whatever. But I think it's one of those systemic things that have come from the old days that we're just slowly breaking through. And I think a lot of it, particularly with the political things that are going on at the moment, I think that there was that workplace culture, and even though they might have thought that you write all your policies and your procedures to say, to be an employee, you can't do this, this, and this. But
Mm-hmm.
there's that unspoken, oh, we can get away with this, oh, it's the boys' club, or we can,
Right.
do this. And unfortunately for them, with social media, it does come out sooner or later. So I think it does happen in a lot, if not all places. I just think that people are either better at covering it up, or they're just going to have to wait until the day when they get caught, because
Oh,
it happens more and more.
so
But
would
yeah,
you?
we have a problem. I don't think I wouldn't say it's any worse or better than any other Western country.
Mhm.
I think it's the same as things like racism or ableism. It comes from just that cultural beginning that we had, that had its certain way of looking at things, being men come first, that kind of thing, and we just have to work slowly to break out of it.
Do you think that that's something that's like bled over from religion? The fact that they say in religion that men are supposed to be first and then women behind them?
Yeah, I think that played a huge part, if not completely. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's because people take the Bible or whatever holy book so seriously, and they make it their whole lives, and then they run countries, and then they put that onto the people who live there. Even if it's not overtly, even if it's just underneath the surface, I think it definitely played a part. I can't see until people stop paying so much attention to those holy books and what their leaders say. I don't see how we can completely eradicate all these isms.
Right.
But I think we will get there slowly. And hopefully it'll just be those smaller religious groups left over that have those leanings towards those things. So fingers crossed.
Is Australia more lenient when it comes to is the racism bad just as bad there, or is that an American thing?
It's still, well, it's definitely still there. We have an ongoing issue with our Indigenous community being targeted by authorities and the police specifically,
Okay.
and all the different deaths in custody that they've had over the years, and they're still fighting for the right to be seen as equal, which is absolutely ridiculous. But it is, I can see differences to what's going on in America. And I think that's probably because of the historical because you guys have the history of the what do you call it?
Slave trade.
The Jim Crow era and all that I heard about, and how that played out into the the 60s and then now. And we didn't have that specifically, but we did have a lot of laws back in the day where